Puck Talk CS. I'm Matthew Mugno, the Chives man. Based on MSG's guest appearance the other night, the Chivesler. I know the Rizzler was at MSG. So, Steve Awoa, we got to break this down, brother. Do you even know what that is? Because I don't. I'm not on TikTok.
I don't. I'm not on TikTok either.
So I had no idea. I know that that troop of people was on Jimmy Fallon. So I feel like that missed half of the demographic they tried to hit, like, was our generation, but like my parents probably had no idea what that was.
Yeah, I mean, mine definitely didn't either, and I didn't even know. So,
Now the other Rizzler in New York was what was he, number 48? Rizzo? Man, he could have been New York legend. I gotta gauge you on that too, because it's been crazy in New York this week. So obviously Freddie Freeman's the boogeyman. But what are your thoughts? World Series.
yeah, listen, with Rizzo, first of all, the World Series, we needed a little break after that World Series. That's why we didn't come at you with an epi last week. But now the World Series is back. I know New York was very big on the World Series. Not a lot of attention going towards
You mean it's
hockey.
over, dog? It's over. It ain't back.
Over,
It's over.
over. Yeah, but you know how it is as a fan. It as soon as it's over, it's not over. It's gonna take you the next week to think about it, especially when you bought a World Series Yankees hat and it hasn't even come in yet. I mean,
Yeah,
but with Rizzo, it just stinks. I liked Rizzo too, man. Going back
me
to that
too.
2016 World Series, and the Rizzo, the potential was there. And he came up big for us in the past. The past 2 years, it was just, obviously him breaking the hand. He just wasn't able to get that power. And I didn't need Rizzo to go out there and hit home runs. What I needed Rizzo to do was get on base or, get those bloop singles. And in the last few games of the World Series, he didn't do that. And also, the defense, it wasn't there. And I'm not talking about like I need flashy plays here and there, like Igor type, whips and dives. I just needed simple plays on like a simple ground ball, and you didn't get that from
Yeah,
Rizzo. It stinks, man. I
no.
loved him, but that seems to be an end for him.
8 hits, 8 strikeouts. I saw. I mean, opts out. He's from Lyndhurst, like around here. Like I played with two guys that played Paramus High School that were from Lyndhurst. So it's kind of crazy. Like that's regional. That's real close. That's like next town over from MetLife. So it would have been real cool. Obviously tough. I thought Cole played great. They're honestly the two probably I'd argue biggest sports teams on planet Earth, like Dodgers, Yanks. Like I thought in terms of that factor, it was cool. So
Yeah, of course. It's like getting. No, I don't even know what the hockey equivalent to that would be.
I
It'd
feel
be
like it would be
more.
Montreal and like I don't know, like Boston, but like they wouldn't play in the Cup final anymore. But
I feel like the equivalent would be like in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, there's a couple sick matchups that you could whip up there. But I mean,
OG
I would
six tech,
I mean, just like Rangers LA, in the Stanley Cup, that one you just never live
oh,
down. This is following there's a lot of parallels to this in
a
terms
lot,
of that. And it's
almost the
just
same series.
I know, and it's just something, especially if you're somebody like Aaron Judge, you're just never gonna live down unless you go out there and perform next year, So
He admitted that though in the post game. I'm impressed. He did
yeah,
say that.
but I've been a lot of people have been impressed with his post game, pressers. But at the end of the day, it was up to performance. And if you put me out there in center, or you out there in center, I think I'm making that catch out there. So I mean,
All right, now here's something Michael K said though, brother. He's naturally right field. And actually, the more we talk about positioning, that's going to segue us right to the Rangers because I think a natural position means a lot at the pro level. Like Judge isn't naturally a center fielder. I'm not saying by any means like, listen, there's a lot with this postseason, whether it was management or player plays that we could nitpick, but at least from the Yanks, I think position's a lot, man.
yeah, but look at the catch he made 2 innings ago off what was it, Teoscar Hernandez, that crazy catch he made at the wall. So I mean, if you can
Yeah.
make that catch, I mean, you should be able to make that easy catch. I mean, the problem with that on that play was Judge was looking at the runner and he took his eye off the ball, and just
Mhm.
that's what happened. He played center all year, but in terms of hockey, I do think we'll transition now. I do think you have a good point in terms of position. So listen, it's been a week. Let's talk some puck, baby.
There it is. All right, Steve-O. I mean, we got to talk because he's the man that I think if it weren't for Aaron Judge, probably the next two athletes or three athletes to talk about in New York. Does Juan Soto stay? Okay. Connor McDavid level athlete. Mika Zibanejad's play and Igor Shesterkin's contract. I really think of all New York sports outside of like Aaron Rodgers with the like McAfee Tuesdays and like the semi-political side of like the Jets struggling now. I think I'm starting to get to the point where I'm questioning, the level. What is the level of concern? Especially this, we're recording this after the Islanders game Sunday. So
Yeah, but well, first of all, I want to say the McAfee Rogers thing. I mean, that's just pure drama. I mean, the Yankees and the Rangers have actual good quality seasons to put together. The Jets are just garbage. I'll say that straight up.
I gotta
But
say, I can't believe they fell apart. Like of all the Jets teams in our lifetime, I thought this would be the one that would at least make noise.
oh, undoubtedly the best dude. Your guy, DA 17
Oh,
Rogers. I mean, Sauce, the
don't even,
defense. I mean, you
I don't
got.
even,
I mean, you got Brees Hall. I mean, they got all the pieces, dude, and they're just
right?
garbage. So I mean, I don't know what else to say on that point. But in terms of the Rangers, how am I feeling? Listen, still feeling pretty good. I know that reshuffling these rosters, and we'll get to Zibanejad certainly in a second. But reshuffling everything, I still feel pretty good. This team is still in a good spot. And for me, I still think on certain standpoints, minus the last like 3 games, I still think we've looked very good. And the thing with this team is it isn't about now; it's about May. And I could say that all season long, but that is going to be the theme of this season, when it
But
comes to
what
this.
what what for you like is like when you right? You're saying like when we get to May. And I think that I'm not going down the path. Like some people are like, oh, the Rangers are getting caved in. Like, yeah, they had some bad showings, but like Igor faced 35 plus shots the last 3 games, and they won two and they won two and lost one. Against the Caps, they lost and they won the last two. But like, what to me, it's like what changes from here to May? Because I feel like, can you go out there the last time we recorded was after that Panthers game. And it's like, what is the game today going to win them that game in the conference final against the Panthers? Right?
That's true. You bring up a good point. I was going to say like a minute ago that I feel very confident, but if there's one thing that scares me, one thing as a Rangers fan, it's definitely the Florida Panthers, bro. They scare
Right.
me. We have proven that we could beat every team. We could beat Carolina. We could beat New Jersey. I mean, regular season against the Islanders in New Jersey. I mean, the last 2 seasons, we've basically swept the floor and mopped them. The problem is we can't beat Florida, man. I don't know what it is about them. And even the game this year, I mean, you think you would have seen a little bit of improvement, and it was just the same thing we saw in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think we made comparisons with Rizzo. I mean, Rizzo and Zibanejad, you can kind of make the comparison there. I mean, when you get to May, maybe I don't need Zibanejad to score 5 on 5. I need him to, you know, just put quality time on the ice, and he hasn't done that in the postseason last year. So
I
what?
mean, you you broke up a little bit
No,
on
go.
me from this end. I was going to say, I think I still think you need him to produce at 5 on 5 though. Like, I think the concern I have is you you go through 9 games and you have this lineup structure, and it's like, listen, the first line did like Kreider and Zibanejad and Riley Smith. I think Smith's been great. We're gonna get to him, but they just don't have an identity. Like all of a sudden, Heedle, Cooley, Kakko are like they can forecheck and they can score, and nobody's scoring on them. Like, which is unreal. I think they're the last line in the NHL that hasn't allowed a goal. Obviously, Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere is the best offensive line in the show. It's like, well, they're Kreider and Zibanejad are supposed to be the first line, but like they're not. So it's like, what's their identity? And then they blow it up and shake up the lines. I don't like how that affects the other lines, you know? Like, I
I,
think they have to score 5-on-5, and I
I'm
think
with you.
that's why they blew it up. But like, what the identity, the fact that there was no identity is concerning, and then it's like now you're changing the identity of like the forward group.
Yeah, I mean, the point on Zibanejad, I mean, this is getting bad, bad. Like, I don't know at this point what it's gonna take to get a
You think like
5 on
what's
5
your
goal.
concern level?
My concern with Zibanejad, I said my concern as a team wide, is not that high, but my concern with
Yeah.
Zibanejad is very high right now because I mean, at this point, how many players do you need to put up there? I'm not just talking this season, I'm talking last year. I'm even talking the end of 22. How many players do you need to put up there in order for him to get going? And I'm getting to the point where 5 on 5, I'm not talking power play. Power play, he's there. We know he's good. Problem is we can't rely on the power play, and that's a team wide thing too as well. We'll jump into that. Power play's been great. Penalty kill's been amazing. Look at the game against Ottawa. But I mean, 5 on 5. But Mika, I'm concerned. I'm concerned. Hopefully, you're able to share my same level of concernness. But I mean, Mika's been bad.
Yeah, my question is like they were close to pulling the trigger on like Jack Eichel. And at the time it was like, well, Mika is coming off like an 80, 90, point type of season, and like Kakko or Loft, like that might be an overpay, which I understood. Context is everything. Like you weren't going to move him. I think the concern I have now is like, you know, it's been now since the 23 playoffs, and it's like outside of scoring, if he's not, I don't feel he's contributing that much. Like, yeah, face-offs, but just like at a above average level for a 1C in the NHL. Like he's not like elite. Um, he got absolutely eaten alive by Barkov in the conference final. He pretty much got eaten alive by Hischier for the Devils in 23. So in terms of those like one-on-one matchups when the season's on the line, it's like, yeah, right now I'm not like concerned, but is this something that like is it going to be addressed this year? In terms of like trade, I know it's crazy early, but I could imagine like you're going to do another 3-4 months of this. If the Rangers were to lose in the playoffs, it's like then you have to address it. Like this cannot go on for much longer. Your 1C cannot play 70 points for 8.5 for the next generation of hockey. He's like one of 4 guys signed for like the next, number of years. The rest are pretty much their contracts are up.
Yeah, it's so funny. I don't know why I remember this, but I remember, a clip of you set talking about Zibanejad and comparing him to other, 1Cs around the league. And this was probably about like a year and a half ago, like way back. And I was like, oh God, I hope like we're nowhere near that. And a year and a half later, we're still trending in this direction. I don't, Zibanejad has been a staple of this team these last few years. And, I don't want to sit here and say, yeah, this is a decline because nobody wants to come to that. It's the same thing in real life. When you anybody who's had a an older grandparent, you know it's tough to have those conversations. But if the Rangers end this season the same way they end last year with Mika's performance, I mean, you have to have those conversations. I mean, because right now it's ugly. I mean, we're getting to the point where we're seeing his minutes of ice time go down. I mean, if you've been watching the last few games, the minutes they've been deploying him, they've gone down, and I
Mhm.
can't blame it. I mean, he's just been bad. I mean, I really don't know at this point what's gonna get him going, it's getting to a point where yes, we know he's gonna click on the power play, but our power play is good. That's not what's going to win us games when it matters. We need 5 on 5, and we could sit here and jump into it about the reshuffling of the lines, which I'm not a fan of. I don't want to be shuffling the lines around my team for based on one guy. But I want you to chip in on your for Mika before we move on.
Yeah, it's just is that it's not changing. Like that's the thing that, and I understand like it's your responsibility as the coach and the teammates. Like you have to find ways and you have to adapt to get different results. And I applaud that. I actually think it's funny too, because like Gallant era, everybody would have been losing their minds if this happened because he had the reputation of always changing the lines. I like that Laviolette's let the chemistry sink in, but it's like, listen, I understand you want to change things, but now if that domino effect is gonna now Panarin and Lafreniere have to change their center. And not that that's necessarily a problem if it works, but today, very small 60-minute sample, I just wasn't blown away with what Mika contributed to his new line. Like that it's not like he was with Panarin and Loff, and I know it's not gonna click automatically, but like clearly rotating 14 right wingers in the last 5, 6 years hasn't worked. So why is this gonna work? Like it really has to come internal. And you mentioned that too, like what's it gonna take to change it? I think it's him, and I think that is concerning because there's no indication and nothing anyone else can do about it.
Yeah, and I think not I don't wanna say that we're just coming to this conclusion, like, right now because that would be pretty dull of us to co to this to, come to that conclusion now, but these last few years, we haven't been pinning this or the last few months, like, "Oh, Mika's the problem." We were pinning it as, "Oh, they need a 3rd functional player on their line." I'm really starting to move this conversation in the direction where you're right. Mika is the problem. It's not who we put on there. Yeah, yeah. Blake Wheeler wasn't that great, but I mean Riley Smith. You could go through the names, even internal names like putting Phil Heedle on there, putting Kakko on there. There was a lot of people who on there, and not one of them was able to spark Mika long term. So listen. I'm with you. I think he's the problem, and this is going to be an issue that's going to plague us all season long. And it's going to be hard. Jury's going to have to find a way. I'm not sure there's a solution or there's a long-term solution in the trade deadline. We might approach the trade deadline and it might just be, a band-aid to solve the problem for the playoffs. But I mean, I don't know what's going to get him going. At this rate, I don't. And there were a few games that Zibanejad looked good in to start the season. They were you know, a span of 2 to 3 games, but then just he gets good. He gets a glimpse of, yeah, he might be back, and then just falls right back into, the pitfall of nothing. So I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know what the solution to this is. I really don't.
Yeah, I think logically too, like we all know he can be streaky, and when he gets hot, he's like I always say this, when he gets hot, he's the best player on the team, and it's truly a miracle. Like I don't think many NHL rosters have a player that's capable of doing that. Maybe Wyatt Johnston for Dallas, but like it's a little bit of a different situation. I'm saying, Igor Shesterkin, Vesna, Adam Fox, Norris Trophy, Artemi Panarin, 100-point scorer, Chris Kreider, one of the top players in club history. And when Mika's hot, he's better than all of them, but it's very streaky. So we know that. Obviously, everybody, I think from us here on our pod, like we want to see him do better, but I think it's going to have to come from within. I don't think Riley Smith has made it very obvious that it wasn't about the right winger. And I don't love that the roster is kind of being shuffled because of it. Touched upon it a few times already. I think we really leave it at that. Unless you have anything else kind of to chime in on the roster shuffle.
Yeah, I don't. The thing with a roster reshuffle or lineup adjustment, whatever the heck you want to call it, is it just brings an aura to the movement of reshuffling it. Like we just lost like 7 games in a row or 8 games, or like we were like playing like the Yankees were in July where they were like 2-30. Like it just
But maybe they should have. Like I think that's what I'm arguing too is like yeah, they win 5-2 and trust me, I love beating the Islanders. I love that they defeated the Islanders, but at the same time like if they lost these 3 games, giving up 40 shots on goal, I wouldn't be shocked either. If they played the Jets and the Panthers, they would have lost.
Yeah, and the thing that kind of stinks about this is, watching the last few games, especially that Washington Capitals game. I mean, boof, that was an ugly one.
That
But
was rough.
you got a lot of parallels from the Eastern Conference Finals against Florida. But the problem is that I really do think, the Rangers got away and won some of these games, like Ottawa. They won this because these teams are not that good. when you play a good team, it's hard to overcome that. And that good team is Florida, and we still haven't proven we could beat them. So that's something that I would circle and highlight there, because that's something I want to see moving forward. Again, when you're playing the Islanders, and you just can't get out of the defensive zone, and you can't sustain anything offensively, then yeah, you might get one by and scratch one through and win. But when you play a real quality team, it's going to be a lot harder to do that, and just like we saw in the Eastern Conference Finals last year with Florida, it's going to be hard to do that. And that is my issue. I feel like it's a Steve-O's year-long issue. But back to the lines. Yeah, the thing is that, there's no argument that Panarin and Loff and Trocheck, that was one of the best lines in the NHL. I mean, and
Yeah,
I
and they actually scored the most, I think, goals 5-on-5 last year.
Yeah, that's true. And what worries me is I don't want to break them up and keep them apart for too long, because I'm
Mm.
afraid, let's say you even 2 games in my book is enough to throw their chemistry off, Chives. And I think, it's not worth risking that chemistry for one player in Mika. And what I haven't seen anything from Mika that makes me think, I'm confident this reshuffle is going to get him going, because I don't think it is. And we haven't seen it in the last year. We haven't seen it, at all in the season, minus 1 or 2 games. So, I don't want to disrupt, my best line, which is Panarin, Loff, and Trocheck. What do you think?
I agree, and I think it's weird. Like from the psyche of Lavi, he has to, and from the psyche of the organization, they have to, and his teammates are always going to try and pick him up. Like at that level, um, I don't think the top Sixers are like complaining. I don't think Kreider is complaining that he played on the third line. I really don't. I think it's his best friend off the ice. Like I think he wants him to succeed. I think everybody wants 93 to succeed, but I think the problem is like a guy like Kakko, I think he wants to see Zibanejad succeed too. But like pointing to by the way, I don't love the third jerseys, but that's aside from the fact like Kakko and Heedle to me were on a tear, and it's like so now it's not like I disagree with you because I actually think if you throw Panarin, Trocheck, and Loff out there tomorrow, they're gonna click. I think a guy like Kakko, who's always struggled with confidence, like it's his 6th year. If he doesn't succeed, he's off the team. Now he's succeeding with Cooley and Heedle, and now it's like now he's got Kreider on his wing, the opposite wing, because Zibanejad's struggling. So I do think like the cascading effect. I will speak to the fact I'd prefer to have that second line intact. So I do agree with that point overall. Um, but I also think the other elephant in the room was obviously defensive play and overall the team D play. And I want to know like there's a lot of stats that point to it. To be honest, we didn't prep a lot of them for the show. Steve obviously is we both got a lot in the personal lives going on, but in terms of those nitty gritty advanced stats, but the Rangers obviously have given up 35 shots a game. And the offense, I think, in a lot of ways, for all the last 10 minutes, we just nitpick the offense. But in the reality, they've outscored teams to win games. And they even scored 3 goals in Washington. But they've given up a lot, Steve. Like, I'm alarmed.
I don't think I need a stat to sit here and tell you that something's off defensively. And I think
Yeah.
it's a combination of a few things. I think we just haven't been able to sustain anything offensively, which, ring the bells, draw the comparison back to the Eastern Conference Finals. You draw the parallels just with Florida. I mean, it's kind of, we weren't as bad as we were then, only going a period with 2 shots. But when you can't sustain anything in the offensive zone, that means you're going to be pinned inside your own zone. And I think we've had a lot of hiccups with zone entries and exits. I think we've been plagued with turnovers and transitions, a lot of sloppy passing. And I think that's part of the reason why the shot totals have been so lopsided recently. I mean, I think it just has to do with us not being able to be in the offensive zone. I think that's a huge part of it. It's not like we're sitting there, and I am concerned. I'm with you. I am concerned, about the just if the numbers. I don't have specifically what they are in front of me, but I mean, I don't even want to say them. They're that bad. But it's just it's not like we're sitting here and I'm like, oh, we're really missing a defenseman. We have our guys. These guys aren't going anywhere. We have our D pairing and our core. It's just we're not playing up to par, and I think a lot of it again has to do, and it is alarming. We've just barely outshot, and it has to do with sloppiness, has to do with turnovers, and has to do with bad puck control. And all of those are going to increase the pressure on Igor. He rose to the occasion against Ottawa, but again, it is alarming. You're right.
Yeah, like for example, I pulled up Money Puck. Obviously, these websites really carry a lot of these, for the writers, the media, like these things help out a lot. 25 goals for, but 14 against. And if you compare that, like the Detroit Red Wings and Boston Bruins are both teams at 500, below 500, have each given up 20 goals. Like the Rangers are in that ballpark. And I know that sounds wild, and it's like 25 goals for, that's awesome. Offense is clicking. But how many games already this year? Was it Utah, you gave up 5 plus. Washington, you gave that up. And I understand Washington's off to a hot start. But that doesn't, to me, that doesn't necessarily excuse 5 goals. And it's also coming at the fact that the guy that all summer, all September in training camp, is Igor going to sign? And it causes schism of a divide in the media world. The reality is Shesterkin is performing to what he needs to perform at. Like it's not like it's Shesterkin, they're giving up 35 shots a game and he's giving up 4 goals. And it's like, like every single game, it's now the margins are thin. It's 20 shots on goal and he still gives up 4. That's not the case. He's making a lot of saves that I think are frankly would have been goals if it were anyone else in that.
Yeah, and you bring up Washington. Washington's off to a hot start. I don't think it matters. Fundamentally, you're still better. Our team is still better than the Washington Capitals. I think on a lot of aspects, we're just another, maybe even 2 levels above them. And just to have a game like that, it's not good. It's not good all around. And it is something that's concerning. But I don't think the reshuffling was aimed to address that specific element, because I do think, as we march along here, in the month of November, I think it's something that's going to get better. I think fundamentally this team is a very stable team. And again, yeah, we do suffer with those mental mistakes, as Laviolette, coined last year. But it's just something that all around, I think, we are a very stable team on that front. Yeah, we let a couple of these games, get out of hand with that. But I think if there's one thing to take away, the stat is the final score at the end of the game, and the fact that we found ways to win some of these games. I also think plays to how strong we are.
Oh, 100%. And I just want to pull up Igor's stats too here because, obviously, I think it goes to show a lot of what Steve and I are talking about. Like, it's the line reshuffle isn't a result of the defense, right? And the offense is doing a really good job. But, like, look at these numbers. We're
Oof.
talking Igor has faced 30 shots in most of his starts. 31, 32, 35, 37. He won all of those games. One of those a shutout. I mean, I think the Utah game was, they had the expansion bump, and I know we're looking at kind of micro things, but point being, the one game that he gave up 4 goals against was the 45 shots against, and that was in Washington. I think you and I agree that he deserves every penny. But I don't think it's the best thing the best thing for the team. Like clearly Igor's motivated for that bag. But at what point do you look and say like 30 shots on goal is not acceptable every game?
Yeah, and looking at these stats, it just adds to another reason in my book why Igor Shesterkin, like Juan Soto, has a blank check, and it's got to get done at the
Blank.
end. At the end of the day, I think there's no disagreement with that. But you're right. I mean, he's averaging more than 30 shots a game looking at these numbers. And I don't know what it is at Washington for some reason. Side note, I mean, we've said this before. I don't know why the hell we can't win in Washington in the regular season. It just blows my mind. I know postseason we had no problem. But for some reason, these last few years, I just remember them. Like I remember last year, I remember in 22, just a couple bad games in Washington. I don't know why, but whatever. Irrelevant. But
We
you're right.
can't win there, bro. You are right. The last few times, I mean, well, I'm sure I could pull that up too, but they have not been able to win there.
I don't know, and not even that, but they're not. It's not even like they're just bad games all around. I mean, you look at this
Which
past
is
week.
ironic because Lavi was the coach in that time. It was Gallant behind the bench for 21, 22,
I
22,
know, but even in
23. So,
22, we had some bad losses there. I mean, I
yeah.
remember we got blown out in one of those games. It was the game that Kako had 2 goals. But by the way, Kako's another one that's kind of going under the radar here. I mean, this boy, the pressure. He must be feeling the pressure this year.
Oh, he's got to be, right? Because you think contract up, third line, like he's got to, I would say, what do you think is the only thing that saves him? Like 50 points? What point total do you think like saves him?
At the end of the day, aside from having, and I always thought this, and this is why he was able to kind of go under the radar last year. But the only thing that saves him, minus him having, a 50-point, 60-point amazing year, is the Rangers winning. The Rangers win the cup this year. Nobody's looking at, wow, Kakko, you know what I'm saying? I mean, look at last year, round one against Washington, and round two against Carolina. Not one person, I didn't hear not one Ranger fan complain about Kakko in round one or round two. Rangers get to the Eastern Conference Final. Things start getting lucky. They were playing a good team. They're neutralizing everybody. Everybody starts pointing the finger at Kakko. I can't. When I was at that one game, Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Final, everybody was getting on Kakko, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, the slander was crazy. But even online too. I mean, the Rangers don't succeed for some reason. Kakko is like one of the first people to get thrown under the bus, and to me, he was obviously not a factor in the playoffs, but he wasn't somebody that, you look back and say, oh, the Rangers, got eliminated in the Eastern Conference Final because of Kako. No, that just wasn't the
Yeah,
case. I thought Kako
that's a
actually
good point.
played decent in the playoffs
Mhm.
last year. But again, aside from to answer your question, I mean, it's the Rangers succeed. Nobody talks about Kako. Rangers don't succeed. For some reason, Kako is like public enemy number one. So I've never understood that, but hopefully he has a good year.
Yeah, no, and look, I mean, 7 points, in 11 games, like, he's not gonna be the 50 goal scorer that, they thought they drafted, but that's pretty good. That's pretty good for him. And yet, another player I think too that is flying under the radar a little bit is, our guy Riley Smith. We talk about it a lot on the pod. I think his positive impact, like that goal today, the feed for Trocheck, like he's a professional and um a veteran presence that I didn't necessarily anticipate. Like I thought he was gonna play all right, but I feel like it shows that like even when you shuffle the lines, you have an extra like legitimate forward, right?
Yeah, same thing. I don't know why, we like these baseball comparisons now, but Anthony Rizzo, I guess I drew comparisons to him all up be wide. Let's do it again. Anthony Rizzo, he minus the World Series, he always gave you a quality at bat. Or Anthony Rizzo pre-injury, he always gave you a quality at bat. And I think that compares a lot to Riley Smith. Is no matter where you put him, he's going to give you quality ice time. He's a dog. He's a real player, and I like Riley Smith. I love him. I think he's been great. I think he's been helping out a lot in terms of stuff you can't see on a stat sheet. And look, there you go. There's the stats. There's a lot here that on these stats that you won't be able to see from his play, which I really do like. I like his speed. I like his ability to pass the puck around. I like his physicality. There's a lot of things, and the things that he had a really good game against Toronto and Montreal, and he's kind of fizzled out a little bit on the score sheet, but he has 7 points on 13 shots all season wide. And Riley Smith is a player I want to see shoot the puck more. I think coming into
Mhm.
the season, he thought his approach was, obviously playing with Kreider and Mika, he wants to be a secondary piece. And I think, that's you can't look at it from that approach. No,
Okay.
Mika's getting moved down to the second option. I want Riley Smith to step up no matter what line he's playing on, first line, second line, no matter who, if he's playing with Will Cooley or Kreider and Mika. It doesn't matter. I want Riley Smith to step up and shoot the puck more. It's something that we haven't really seen. Just look at his shots on goals. I want him taking more shots. And you can see 3 shots a game, 1 goal. When he's better when he's creating opportunities. So I like what
Yeah.
I've seen from him on the offensive side, even though it's been a small sample size. But I want to see him step up, and instead of looking at himself as a secondary solution, I want him to start being, a top dog, which we've seen in those Vegas runs. He can be.
Yeah, and you know what the thing, Steve-O, too, to me is like Uh, he's giving you 15, 16 minutes of ice time. This is a guy penalty kills. As you mentioned, he could be the complimentary guy. When he shoots the puck, he can score. This is something you weren't getting with Jack Roslovic. Like that was a question mark. Kakko has been a question mark in the past. Even Philip Heedle's health overall, and prior to his breakout in the 22 conference final run, his like 8 goals the 2 seasons before, back-to-back seasons before that, 16 overall, like there were questions with Heedle. So I think overall he just gives you a little more in that top six that's like he's legit, and he's not walking. It's not like Vetrano and Cop where they gouge their interest and their value, and they're going to leave the team. So you have him for the duration of the season, and it's also a little bit different than Wheeler, where it was like, all right, off the bat you could tell Wheeler once he didn't get the wheels turning, literally wheels turning by like November last year. It was like, all right, this is pretty much the guy we're getting. He's I just think he adds subtle play, like kind of in the same way that Trocheck did his first season in New York, where it was like, all right, he's comparable to Strome, but he is better than Strome. Now he's completely taken off, but I guess I'm saying I like the subtle play of Smith a lot.
I do. I'm with you. I don't know why I thought of this, but have you seen Alex Wenberg on the Sharks recently? He's been killing it. I think his last like 5 games,
Really?
he's got like 2 goals and like 6 points. I mean, of course, it's because you brought up Roslovic, and even though Roslovic hasn't been like hasn't been killing it over there in Carolina, just seeing former Rangers, seeing Frankie go and Wenberg, it's like that's just a classic Ranger thing to happen.
You know, I do question this too. And now that we're on the topic, I don't want to spin it negatively. But before we wrap, like it's early, and me and you love this. We love the trade deadline. We love it. We love free agency. But but do you think they could package like do you think Riley Smith could actually be packaged for a better right wing? Like I see a lot where
Ooh.
like Vetrano kind of I don't know if he slipped or if he was just kind of like the way he was talking was just like he said I think to Johnny when the Rangers played the Ducks something about like my first year in New York, implying like not implying that he'd be there again, but like it seemed like a little bit of a mental slip because he said in the like he loved playing in New York. That was obvious. Do you think like maybe the Rangers could like I don't know if Riley Smith would let that go though. They signed him 2 years, but I'm pondering if Riley Smith, if they wanted to get a better like star right wing, like do they trade him? Like his value's
Ooh, I
high.
love this. You're right. I love this question, and I think it's too early to answer it. But if
All
it's
right.
on the boy, I would love Frankie V back. Oh my God, that's a match made in heaven right there. But
But also, I
if
wonder if
it,
like does that hurt? Like if Riley Smith's doing well and then Frankie V comes over and he struggles a little bit, then it's like, oh, why do we do that? You
exactly,
know?
it's too early to answer that question because Riley Smith could get hot and he might have 10 goals from between now and the trade deadline. And at that point, I would say, you know what, no. Or he could go cold. Knock on wood that doesn't happen, but maybe we get to the trade deadline and he's a Blake Wheeler. You know, can't jump to conclusions. I haven't seen anything that would lead me to that conclusion, but you never know. I think it's too early, but that's a good point. You might have to clip that and we'll have to save that before the trade deadline. But I mean, when it comes to winning a Stanley Cup, all options are on the table, and I kind of like that. I could definitely see the Rangers maybe swapping him with a contender for another piece, or maybe a non-contender too. I could definitely see that. Depends.
Now, Steve, since we got sense of humor here, just throwing up Jeff Skinner stats for everyone that had anything to say to us. Our 900 views and 30 comments about how personal attacks on Steve and I over our opinion that Jeff Skinner might not pan out in Edmonton. 5 points, 11 games. That smells like 40, on pace for 40 in 80. About so actually no, that math is completely wrong. What is that? 5 points, 11 games.
You're gonna blow 40, way out of the water on in terms of that. But listen,
Well, yeah. What is that?
I don't even know. I'm not a math guy.
I'm
You
not a
know,
math guy either.
math was not my forte. But
We didn't need a math degree for this. Well, I don't need, dude. I can't even sit here and think about that. But still, 5 points, 11 games, not crazy.
no, listen. I think you know people could have your own opinions, but if you watch hockey, you knew this was a great move for Edmonton, especially now McDavid's out. I don't know if anybody out there listening knew that, but McDavid's out now for the next 2-3 weeks. Jeff Skinner, and a lot of
Yeah, but
others.
that's like saying Jesus like arose from the tomb, man. I think everybody knows that McDavid's out.
That's true, but I mean, at the
Actually,
same,
that might be big for the Rangers coming up. They got the Canadian road trip coming up.
that's true. But I always thought we played Edmonton always well. But again, I mean, if you look at some of the comments that we get, on some of our content, you would think a lot of people don't watch hockey. So I'm not saying that to individually people who are listening, but everybody knows that people suck. So I don't
This,
know.
this the internet age.
That's true, but the Oilers are the Oilers. Boy, actually, I'm not even gonna say that because we're a long way from that. But I guess you get hints of what I was gonna say. But
Yeah, you're
um,
actually on pace for like 50 points, dude. All right, that's not panning out, but just for all the slander we got, I don't I don't care. He's not Zach Hyman 2.0 like last season. Actually, I think Hyman's struggling too.
yeah, Hyman is struggling, and I think Hyman is like a prime example of literally you go to streaky or whatever word you called it earlier, hot cold. Hyman's the definition of that. I mean, he'll give you 6 goals in 2 games, and then he'll give you 6 goals in 3 months, or 2 goals in 3 months. So
That wasn't
man,
the case last year though. He was off a beam last year, but no, I hear you. Like overall in his career, I agree. And I think he didn't do great in the playoffs for Toronto for like 6 years, and then like he went crazy last year. But
I know.
I wonder what Sam Reinhart's up to. I think he's leading the league again in goals. Let me tell you, talk about a
Who?
changed man.
I missed you. You said who?
Sam the Lionheart,
Oh, he always is. And also,
Ranger
Florida's got,
killer.
man, they got dogs. How about Sam Bennett on Florida? I saw he was raking Reinhardt and Bennett. Whew. I mean, there's not many things that scare me right now, but right now, New York, Florida Panthers, and Juan Soto signing with somebody else are the two things I got in my mind.
Yeah, I think to wrap, like the Rangers D is struggling, Mika Zibanejad struggling. I'm not worried about the team, and I think I'm not really like jerseys started off all right. They're good, but I don't think they play great. It's kind of same category as the Rangers, but I think their goaltending is subpar. Like Markstrom's numbers don't blow me away. So I think the Rangers have them the edge goaltending and goal scoring. I think because the end of the day, if Shesterkin's going to save two or three should be goals and Markstrom is like average, Rangers got them. Uh, I would assume Carolina. I think the Rangers just have their number, and then it's like Florida is the big question mark. Because frankly, I think if the Rangers had to like if Toronto somehow like overcame Florida in the playoffs, and it was like, oh my gosh, Toronto's in the Eastern Conference Final, and the Rangers made it that far. I don't know. I just feel like we saw it firsthand. Like the Rangers have I wouldn't say have their number, but they play them well.
Yeah, they did, and
Florida feels like the team.
yeah, I'm with you on that point. Like they scare me. I not to the point where I wake up and I'm like quivering in my boots. We're not there yet, but Not getting ahead of myself, but Florida is a team that, they scare me. And we know if there's one thing that's been the difference so far, this is my last point before we wrap it up. It's special teams, and that is always the reoccurring conversation, with this team. Aside from Igor, it's been the special teams, whether it's us scoring on the power play, or how about the other night when we killed all five, power plays that Ottawa had, and that is no, small feat, because entering that game, Ottawa had the league's number 2 ranked power play. When we played that game at that time, so all special teams has been good, and I think if special teams has not been this good, then I think you'll see, we'd be having a very different conversation, and our record wouldn't be as it is today. But if you're not going to score on 5, you have to take advantage of those opportunities, and that is something we've always been good at. But I mean, if you're not going to get Mika going, I mean, you better score on the power play moving forward.
Oh yeah, no, I 100% agree with that, Steve. And I think kind of summarizes my thoughts overall. Again, World Series was a tough one for us, and it's still early in the season. Like I feel like Steve and I, we've kind of been taking the bi-monthly just because it's early. I think around Thanksgiving we're really gonna, lock in, like Soto at bat, and start pumping everything out because I think that's when hockey really starts picking up. So like this week they have a pretty uh week. Winnipeg next Tuesday, Canadian road trip. Then they return from that and have Carolina on November 27th. I think that's when your season picks up. I think that is the circle it on the calendar game. Obviously, Jets is going to be a test, but Western Conference team don't see them often. They play by committee. Otherwise, Steve and I will be back hopefully with episodes for next few Mondays. And if that's not the case, just know we'll be picking it up for sure around Thanksgiving.
Hockey heals everything, especially after the Yanks. So that'll wrap us up here on this Epi. Yanks out, hockey is back, and we want to hear what you guys have to say. DM us, email us, interact with our feed, all at Puck Talk CS. We want to hear what your opinions are, and ask us questions as well. We take fan questions, so send them our way. And always remember, it's just the luck of the puck.